House needs painting, grass needs mowing, where's he at?
Hi, this is Hank. Sorry I missed your call. Leave me your name and your number and I'll get back to you.
He's gone fishing.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Mossy Oak and Liqua Moly.
Welcome to Off the Water with Hank Parker. I'm your co-host, Sarah Beth, and you are...
Hank Parker and Sarah Beth, it's so good to be with you. We got a fine day today, and we're going to talk a little bass fishing, a little red breast fishing, a little cat fishing, a little snook fishing, a little tarpon fishing, a little redfish fishing, a little triple tail. Man, we're going to just talk about fishing in general.
Yeah.
Let's go fishing.
Let's go fishing.
Hey, you know, I'm going to start out. We talk about the old times and the new times and good times, and there ain't no bad times in fishing. A bad day fishing is better than a good day at work. How many times we heard that?
That's true. Woo! Amen. Hey, I witnessed that firsthand the other day. We went to Monticello and didn't catch a single thing.
You're not supposed to tell that. When I don't catch fish, I don't talk about that. So
it's about the time you have out there, too.
Yeah, that's right. We were chasing eagles, and we were trying to find bedding fish. There were no bedding fish, and we videoed a golden eagle, which is a rare thing on the East Coast. So that was all good. Good times. But hey, if you're ever in Shreveport, Louisiana, or in that area, it's worth going out of your way to go to Bacon's Bait and Tackle. It is a walk back in history. I think it is the single oldest tackle shop in all of America. If it is not the oldest, it is certainly one of the oldest. Michael Bacon gave me a personal tour. His dad, or maybe even his grandfather, was the founder of Bacon Tackle, 1904, some crazy time in history. So it is super old, but they made almost all the rubber skirts that went on like hula poppers and all the different baits that use rubber skirts, spinner baits, the little H&H spinners, and they made almost every devil horse that was ever made. They made all sorts of baits, but I got a bait here that is so cool. It's real frog skin.
Oh.
Off of a real live frog. Of course, he's not live now.
Clearly.
But at one time, he is an official organ donor.
That is super cool. He is an organ donor, ain't he?
Yeah. And I don't know if Michael made this particular bait himself. I think he did. And it's a family tradition, all the designs, and there's some really, really neat baits. This bait, I don't know that this bait was ever on the market. It's a sharp bait, unlike a devil horse, and it walks a little different, but I'll never throw this one. It is so cool. It is real frog skin. And cool. The design of these baits, if you look, they were pretty complicated in the early 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and of course we've just progressed and progressed and progressed. But these lures were pretty sophisticated for their era, and they did a job. You know, I talk about all the time, fishing lures are tools, and if you want to look at the old tools, again, it's Bacon's Bait and Tackle in Shreveport, Louisiana. You got to go by there and see it. It is just a walk back in history. And if Michael happens to be there, he can walk you through it and give you the tour as he did me. And I was just so fascinated. He took me in the back room and showed me how they made all the tools to cut the wood and how at that time, it was state-of-the-art. I mean, It was an assembly process that was state-of-the-art. Today, it's not quite as sophisticated as some of the lure manufacturing facilities, but it was far more advanced in the 50s than I would have ever dreamt. And I so much enjoyed that tour. And I looked at a lot of the old lures, and I saw lures I hadn't seen in 100 years. I saw lures
100 years.
Yeah. You know, I'm 144 years old.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise you. I'm pretty feeble for my age, but nevertheless, good times, man. And so I'm just encouraging you, if you have the opportunity, I promise you, it's a walk back in history, and it was so delightful to see that Michael still has the enthusiasm and excitement about lures and building lures, and he just delighted in walking me through and sharing the history. And of course, he didn't even realize how much that meant to me. I was soaking it up, man. I enjoyed it. So if you're around Shreveport, you can actually go see a real frog skin applied to a lure.
That's so cool.
With glass eyes, by the way.
Glass eyes.
All that was developed there. I mean, there was so much went on at this shop. You got to go see it. It's just hard to believe, but it's a walk back in history. So we're going to talk a little bit about history. We're going to talk a little bit about current times. And I was asked the other day, going back in history, I was asked the other day, do you remember your first fishing lure? I don't. Do you remember your first fishing rod? I don't. Do you remember your first fishing reel? I do. I do. I remember it so well. It was a Zebco 33. It was silver, metal. It wasn't plastic. It was metal. And how I love that 33. So as I go through my life, I talk to all these different pro fishermen, and almost everybody started with a Zebco 33. And they said, well, what about your kids? Well, they all started with a Zebco 33.
We started with Zebcos too.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
like continuing it down to like family fishing show was all Zebco rods.
Yeah, rods and reel combos, man. So my heritage goes back to fishing with that little Zebco, and great reels, man. We're so sophisticated today. I'm a Lew's guy. Man, I love Lew's rods and reels, and Lew's rods are probably the most underrated product in the fishing tackle world. Lew's has got the best rods in the world. I mean, they are awesome, and they should have. When you stop and think, they've got engineers, and they've got the top fishermen in the whole wide world. And you got David Fritz, who is an awesome crankbait fisherman. So David's got his own personal rod that he's developed over the years. Well, Lew's makes that. You look at Andy Montgomery, who can skip a bait anywhere in the world. Andy gives his input to the engineers at Lew's, so Lew's makes that. You got Greg Hackney, who is just an incredible frog fisherman, flipper, skipper. He gives them his input, and Lew's makes that. You got Mark Rose, who's an awesome crankbait fisherman, but he fishes a little bit different than David, and he's got his own, David Fritz, he's got his own method. So he shares that with the engineers at Lew's, and they design rods. And then you got this kid from Michigan up there who's no longer a kid. He's actually lived out his career, won about 5 or 6 Bassmaster Classics and retired, Kevin Van Dam. Kevin shares his input on everything he knows about rods, and Lew's builds them. So I think that the technology and the secret behind manufacturing, everybody knows that. All that's out, all the AV technology on how to wrap a mandrel and all the different guides that are available, everybody knows that. So now who has the best fishing rod really depends on who's got the best fishermen and the best engineers willing to listen and build a rod according to their specs.
Yeah.
And that's what you have with Lew's. So it's awesome. So I'm a Lew's guy, but when I go back to my days, I started with Zebco. My kids started with Zebco. So my son Timmy, little Isaac, loves to fish, and the first reel I gave him was a Zebco.
Yep.
It's a family
Zebco.
tradition.
It is a family tradition.
Heck, what I do, you fish. But anyway, we got a family tradition going with Zebcos. But I'm a Lew's guy now, so don't get me confused. I'm a Lew's guy, and I love their product, and I have so much fun fishing with the greatest equipment that is known to man, and I think that's pretty special. But I want to talk about simple equipment. I want to talk about the days that we all got started. Going to Bacon's Bait and Tackle took me back in history. And a couple of questions were asked to me. Tell me how you got hooked on fishing. Tell me when you started fishing. Tell me what the highlight of your fishing was in your life. And mine was, we lived in a little town, Maiden, North Carolina, and my grandfather lived in McRae, Georgia. So we would go down and visit my grandpa, and we called him Gramp. And Gramp had an old dugout Cypress boat, couldn't swim a lick. And I think about that. That boat would have been so easy to turn over, and there he couldn't swim. And he's in the Okmulgee River with cottonmouths and alligators and everything else, but he loved it. But the highlight for me was to go down there and get in that old dugout Cypress boat and go redbreast fishing. My grandpa, Gramp, he loved redbreast fish. And first, I want to stop just a second. I want to apologize to anybody if I've ever made anybody feel like that I think bass fishing is superior to any other type of fishing, catfishing, redbreast, bluegill, crappie, whatever. I love fishing. And if I've ever made anybody feel like I think a bass fisherman is superior, I don't think that at all. And so if I've ever done that, if I've ever reflected that attitude, I want to apologize. I think fishing is so special to you, and whatever you like to fish for is what. My grandpa never wanted to fish for bass. He called them trout. He'd get mad. He said, I flipped that cricket in there and that big old trout, he called a bass trout. That big old trout took all my mess. He hated them. You know, he didn't want to catch a bass. He wanted to catch a redbreast. And so he'd flick his little cricket in there, and that big bass take his 6-pound line and break his bobber and his hook, and he had to re-rig, so he didn't like a bass. He never wanted to fish for bass. He was content with fishing for redbreast, and it's an awesome fish. So I think that fishing is such a unique sport. You find what is important to you and what you like to do, and you do it. And that's why I want to talk about the history. And the whole reason I started this podcast, the whole reason I wanted to do it, is I like to share the stories of when I was a kid, when I got involved in bass fishing, when I started tournament fishing, and when I started television, and how things have progressed. I love that story. And that's what really intrigued me to start doing a podcast, because I'm one of a few people that have lived the whole era when the first bass tournament started up until where we are today. Mm-hmm. I remember the first bass tournament Ray had at Beaver Lake. Over half the field had tiller handle outboards. I mean, how far have we come? I remember I emceed one of the very first collegiate bass tournament, and man, they had car toppers, they had John boats, they had all kinds of rigs. You go back 5 years later, and they all got Z boats, they've all got Duramax diesel trucks towing. I mean, they look like they're going to a professional BASS tournament or a Major League Fishing. I mean, these guys are decked out. So things have changed. I would have said things have progressed, but I don't know if that's progressing or not. Things have advanced, but has it been progressive? I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about the simple days, and I want to talk about my grandpa, Gramp, fishing for redbreast with an old dugout Cypress boat. That thing probably wouldn't cost $100. And the only thing he had to get was a cage of crickets or dig some red worms and a boat paddle. He used a cushion, a floating cushion, that's what he sat on, and a life jacket. And that's it. The old Zebco 33s, and you go into the river. That's all it was. It's no SD cards for your map. It's no syncing your Ethernet together to get your one boat network established. It's none of that. It's just simple. Bobbers blowing in the wind, man. You throw the cane poles and the Zebcos in the dugout Cypress boat, you head down the road to go to the river. That's where I learned how to lie.
Oh, no.
Because the truth couldn't describe my emotions. I was inadequate. My vocabulary would not allow me to describe how important it was and how thrilled I was. So I'd have to make up stories that redbreast weighed 5 pounds. You know, it'd been a 3-time world champion, world record redbreast, you know. But
that's where it started.
To me, I never could. I always exaggerated and embellished. I'm going to not use the word lie, but I lied like a dog, to be honest. But nevertheless, I'm going to use the word embellish. It sounds so much more dignified. But I would embellish because it was bigger than life to me. And I remember the anticipation riding down the road. I remember the anticipation when you'd throw that cricket in there with a bobber and see that bobber start to move, and the thrill and the excitement. And, man, it was the highlight of my whole year.
Wow.
You know, other kids, they wanted to go to Disney World, or they wanted to go to the theme parks and ride roller coasters or go to the carnival. Nothing that I ever did fulfill me earthly like going fishing. Mm-hmm. And it was so simple. And I worry somewhat. I know I hurt my kids. I know I was too tournament-minded when my children were little. I'd go out there and stay all day with maybe one bottle of water, nothing to eat, and I felt like we need to make 1,000 casts an hour. And I know I took the fun out of it for them. I really don't want to make that same mistake with my grandkids. I want to make sure that it's all about them. And I've told people for years, when you take your kids fishing, the best thing you can honestly do is leave your rods and reels at home. Mm-hmm. And let it be about them. And if they want to throw it out there and wind it in, you know if they could let it sit there, they're going to have a better chance of catching a fish. But it doesn't matter. If they want to throw it out there and wind it in 1,000 times, let them throw it in there and wind it in 1,000 times. If they get it tangled up, don't fuss. Just untangle it and give it back to them. Let them make a mess. Let them have fun. I didn't do that.
I know.
I know.
Oh, I know. I remember the family fishing days. I've said that story about 6 times. I mean, a lot of us, especially us little girls, get our little lines hung up in the tree. And, you know, here comes Hank. He's trying to help the other grandkids. And then next thing you know, he's over there trying to untie a line from a tree. It's frustrating. It
was too many. You know, that was the one thing we had so many. But it was okay. And I've learned to do better. And I've learned how important that dreaming, that anticipation, that excitement of that simple little old dugout Cypress boat in the Okmulgee River fishing for redbreast. And it changed my life. It gave me a thrill and an excitement that I've never lost.
No.
Here I am, 68 years later. I started when I was 4 years old, and I still get excited. I still love it. I still anticipate when I go to the water. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want my grandkids to miss out on that. I did burn my kids out a little bit. They've come back, and it's took a little while, but it was my fault. And we made it too complicated. I love the technology that we're involved in. I love all the mapping. I like the one boat network system that I have set up on my Ranger. I love my big shiny Ranger boat more than I would a dugout Cypress boat. So I'm thankful. I'm way blessed beyond what I deserve. But I like all of that. But I wonder if sometimes all the complications of the sophistication of all the technology that we have might take a little bit of the fun out of it.
Yeah, I was actually watching some of your old shows the other day. We're doing the Look Back series where every Sunday we're posting a throwback episode. So we're starting at season 1, so 1985. All of those episodes have the old commercials in them too. And there was a Humminbird commercial, and I can insert this clip in the podcast, but there was an old depth finder commercial, and it was like one of the first ever depth finders. And remember you saying before about there was tons of controversy over that when that first came out, but you look at it now and you're like, wow, that's real primitive.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's where we've come. And again, that was the whole foundation of why I wanted to do a podcast. I wanted to talk about all those changes and the revolution that has taken place and the evolution that has taken place in this sport. And most of it has been very good progress, but knowing how, it's like desserts. Man, it's hard to beat a good dessert.
Right.
Like a hot now Krispy Kreme donut.
That is
I could
hard.
eat a dozen. But you can't do that 3 times a day, 7 days a week. You'd be so fat you couldn't get in the door, and you'd probably die from cholesterol and
That's
all the bad
sinful
stuff.
is what it is.
Yeah. So you got to learn how to proportion it or moderate, and to be able to keep it in perspective. And that's the same thing with all this change that has taken place. I'm not sure that most kids that get to go fishing today have that same thrill and excitement that I had when I was a kid. And I never want to lose that. And I like Tom Bedell at Berkeley years ago started a campaign, Pass It On. Let's take the tradition that we've had and pass it on to the next generation. And in doing that, that whole campaign was built around conservation. Let's make sure that our fisheries are as healthy for our children and our children's children as they were for us. So let's leave it better than we found it. I love that.
Right.
Let's practice catch and release when necessary. And let's do all the things that we need to do to preserve our waterways and our environment. And let's pass it on. And kids, when I was young, Little League Baseball was a big deal. We didn't have Pop Warner football where I lived. And we couldn't play football until we got into high school. And so it was all about Little League Baseball or fishing or hunting.
Right.
Or outdoors of some sort. And I loved to swim as a kid. My grandpa had a public swimming pool. We loved to swim. But fishing was my foundation, was my anchor, was my escape. It was my mom and dad, they had serious marital problems. My dad was an alcoholic, and it was an environment in our home that wasn't real friendly, and I needed to escape. And my escape was the pond. And it didn't matter how bad things were in my life, whether my grades were failing or my mom and dad were fighting. When I was at the pond, nothing else mattered. It's about getting that bobber to go under. Man, I was just ate up with it. So it became such an important part of my life as I got older. But it all began with my Gramp, going down and fishing in the river in that old dugout cypress boat, fishing for redbreast. And that is the foundation in which all my fishing started. And then as time went on, I really enjoyed bass fishing. When I got into bass fishing, I thought, man, what a thrill is this. I remember my brother and I stole a Hawaiian wiggler out of my dad's tackle box. And by the way, Bait and Tackle made that rubber skirt that went on those Hawaiian wigglers.
Yeah.
Is that not cool?
That is cool.
I mean, the very first lure that I saw a 3-pound bass, my brother caught a 3-pound bass on the first cast with that Hawaiian wiggler. And that bait meant so much to me. We eventually lost it, but he and I got in a fight over it because he caught one. It was my turn to catch one. He didn't want to give it up, but he could beat me up back then. But days changed. I got bigger and meaner, so I beat him up and took it away from him, and then I lost it. But to go back in history and look at where that bait was made and the skirt that went on it, all that's cool stuff. But it just progressed, and every step I took was with that same enthusiasm and that same thrill. So now people ask me, what is the number one ingredient What does it take to be a professional bass fisherman? What do I have to start with? You got to have a passion. You got to love it. You got to absolutely love it. And there are kids that are participating that like it and they enjoy it, but they don't love it.
Right.
They ain't going to make it. They're not going to be a world champion bass fisherman. You got to love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, based off of everything that you've said, it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of drive, a lot of hours, a lot of, I would even say, some disappointment when you go out there all day, like you were talking about, some of the disappointment of spending all day on the water and not getting a thing, not getting a bite. You know, it's trial and error. You got to take the time to learn. And that's, if you're not passionate about something, you're going to give up within a week and be like, man, this ain't worth it.
Yeah, but that's how you temper steel. You heat it and you beat it and you heat it and you beat it. And that's how
Right.
you temper fishermen. You go fishing, you don't catch them. If you caught them every time, everything you did, it'd be like B.B. King. The thrill is gone.
Yeah.
But
Get boring.
yeah, but when you struggle and you work and you get better and you have bad days and all of a sudden you turn that into a good day, man, it's thrilling. And I remember my grandpa when we would go in the Okmulgee River and fish for redbreast. I'd catch 2 or 3 little bitty ones and I'd be thrilled out of my mind, and he was so dejected that we only caught 2 or 3. I thought, how awesome is this, you
Right.
know? And
cool.
I'd catch some little bitty ones and he'd make me throw them back, you know, and I thought, ooh, that hurts. I bet I wanted to keep it and show my grandma.
Yeah.
One day he let me, I came in with a string of fish. I think I had probably 10 little bluegill and redbreast, and I think collectively they weighed about 15 ounces, you know, it's all 10
yeah.
of
Little tiny,
oh, they're
tiny
little bitty.
things.
But hey, to me, it was thrilling.
Yeah.
So here's my whole point. Simplicity, it just is easy. When all you got to remember is a paddle, a box of crickets, or a can of worms, and your life jackets and your rods or your poles, that's it. You go
Right.
fishing.
It's true. You know, I think besides the family fishing show, we would go to Florida and go visit my dad's parents. And she lived on a retention pond in Florida. And I remember fishing there, and all I had was a thing of hot dogs. And then I couldn't tell you what kind of rod and reel it was. It was an old rod and reel. And we just put a little bit of a hot dog on the end of it and catch catfish. That was it. But I just remember it being just as thrilling. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, that's fun. My whole point is walking back in time and looking at the foundation of where it started. It started with a passion. And I remember Jacob Wheeler when I weighed Jacob Wheeler in the first junior world championship. This kid, Jacob Wheeler, he had this intensity look. I mean, he was so intense for a kid and was so focused, and he could explain what he had going on, and you could tell the wheels were rolling in his mind, and he won the junior championship, and 2 or 3 years in a row, he's right there. And I remember standing on stage, I said, guys, remember this name right here, Jacob Wheeler. This kid's going to be a world champion.
Yeah.
He loved it. I mean, he was so wrapped up in it at 12 and 13 years old, 11.
Right.
I don't even remember how old he was, just a little kid. Now he's a world champion and catching fish every time you turn around, you read his name.
That's cool.
But he had a passion.
Right.
I mean, a passion, like Roland Martin. Roland is so passionate about fishing. He is so passionate, and he's good at everything. People look at Roland Martin's history, 9-time Angler of the Year, and how many tournaments he won was just incredible. But Roland's a good tarpon fisherman. He's a good saltwater fisherman of any kind. He fished, the funniest thing, I think, when Irwin Jacobs and FLW started the Redfish Tour, Roland thought, I love to fish for redfish. I'm gonna start fishing. So he got a partner, and I think Roland was like 70 when he started, and he had a partner that was older than he was. I think he was 75 or 76. And the first year they fished, they were in the running for Rookie of the Year.
That's terrible. Oh, man.
Collectively, they were 145 years old, and they were running for Rookie of the Year. I thought that was the coolest thing. But Bandy just had this passion and became one of the greatest fishermen of all times, Larry Nixon. Such a passion for the sport. Larry was in college and doing well, and he dropped out of college to fish. I remember a friend of ours, Bill Schrader. Bill fished with him, and it wasn't long after he fished with Larry, he told me, he said, I told that boy's smart. Larry Nixon's smart. I told that boy he needed to get his butt back in school, get his college degree, and then if he wanted to fish, he could fish. And then about 5 years later, I fished with Bill one day, and we was talking about Larry. He said, no, Larry did the right thing. He's made millions of dollars. He's doing exactly what he needed to do. That was smart. So he forewent the college education to be able to fish, to feed the passion that he had because he loved it so much. And so I think that's what we got to figure out, is how to give our kids something that is more powerful than a cell phone, more powerful than easy entertainment that we have with all the streaming opportunities that there is. Throw all that away and go fishing. And I think we got to make it fun. So I go back and I reflect, and going to Bacon's Bait and Tackle over in Shreveport kind of woke me up a little bit as I walked back in history, and I saw how important all that stuff was. And I remember how important it was to me and how I grew with the sport. And I want to make sure that I don't overlook that. And that's why I want to talk about it today on the podcast. I want to make sure that all the listeners and the viewers, they don't overlook that. Sometimes we need to be reminded of how important it is to share things of value with our kids and the next generation. And take a kid fishing is a great idea. Take a kid hunting is a great idea. Spend time, be a big brother. There are a lot of kids that don't have opportunities.
100%. I'd say that.
And so let's think about that. Let's think about what can we instill in them. I kid about it. Martha's got a plaque. She don't have it anymore. She had a plaque in the kitchen one time that said, give a man a fish and feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and get rid of him for the whole weekend.
I remember that.
Yeah. But teach a man to fish and you'll feed him for a lifetime. And that is so important with these kids, is to teach them to love it, teach them to enjoy it, have fun. And so I'm all for the One Boat Network. I'm all for using the technology that we have today to catch fish. I'm all for that. But that doesn't apply across the board. No. And it can be so sophisticated, so complicated, and so much not fun.
Right.
That we need to overlook some of the things that we would like to do and look for something more simple that's more fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's an expectation, and I can't speak for everybody when I say this, or I can't really speak for anybody, but this is just from what I've observed. Some of the younger anglers, I think there is an expectation, and especially that pressure is through social media, that if they don't have this technology and they're not catching these huge string of bass every time that they go out, that they're not worth their salt. That just being a bank fisherman isn't enough.
Well, and where the younger generation is that are fishing tournaments today, first of all, let me just tell you, they're better than I ever was. People say, well, you're one of the greatest that ever fished. I had my years, but these kids are so much better than I ever was. I mean, I'm just as honest as I know how to be. It's unbelievable how smart these kids are and how good they are. I want to make sure they're having fun, and I want to make sure that they understand it's important to have fun. If you just want a job, there's a lot of jobs out there that you can make more money and take less risk than being a professional fisherman. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be fun. But even if you have never dreamed about being a professional fisherman, you just love to fish. It's just as important. It's just as important. Everybody needs to be able to have a hobby that they love and be a part of, and that's what I just want to instill. But to defend these kids today, boy, hotel bills are through the roof. The price of gasoline and travel, because of all the technology, these boats are just super expensive. So you got a gigantic investment when you say, okay, I'm not going to have a traditional job. I'm not going to have a steady income. I'm going to be a professional fisherman. And you take that Nestea plunge, and you've really bitten off a lot. So these guys have put themselves in a pickle because it's a very difficult thing to make it. There's so many guys out there that are competing for just a handful of jobs and sponsors that you've got hundreds of people competing for just a very few spots.
Honestly, if you look at today versus when you first started, like when you had told a story about how you'd taken out a bank loan to get started to do fishing tournaments. I don't believe you could have done that nowadays with all how expensive everything is. You get what I'm saying? I feel like that's kind of preventing the Hank Parkers of today.
I would say that if I didn't know some guys that are there.
That do?
They're there.
Okay.
They have borrowed money and they're living off of credit cards. I mean, they get these credit cards with high limits and they max them out with the dream that they're going to win the next $100,000 tournament and be able to pay their debt.
Wow.
My son, Ben, Ben's a great fisherman. Ben can outfish me, but Ben was never able to put all the strategies together and make it work. He would get rattled and not make the best decisions during the tournament. But I talked to Ben early on, going into he fished the EverStarts with FLW and fished some other tournaments. And I talked to Ben about how expensive this is. I mean, it is super expensive. And if you're not really, really careful, you'll find yourself several $100,000 in debt.
Ooh.
And it's hard to dig out of. And I told Ben early on, I said, Ben, you're going to have to set a limit. You're going to have to say, okay, once I get $50,000 in the hole, I'm going to quit and get a real job.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did. And I'm so proud of him. Ben did an awesome job. Ben won about $55,000 in debt. And he said, it's not working for me. And I've got to get out of this and get a job. And he did. And boy, he worked. I mean, he really applied himself. He worked long, hard hours. Ben makes a great living today. He's paid himself completely out of debt, got a beautiful home on Lake Norman that I'm just so proud of what he's done. But he realized that. But how many other guys I know out there, I get phone calls all the time, man, how can I work through this? How can I get more sponsors? How can I get more income? What can I do to offset all these expenses? Man, these guys were in a hole. And they didn't do what Ben did. They didn't set a limit. And it's so easy to think, well, I'll get the next one.
Yeah.
I just got to hang on. I got one more if I can win that one. And they just keep going until all of a sudden they're a couple $100,000 in debt. And there's so many of those guys out there. So saying all of that, there's way more pressure on this younger generation of professional anglers than there's ever been.
Yeah.
And so I understand the frustration. I understand a lot of the negative comments. I understand how you get wrapped up in that, but it's so important to go back and let's be honest, what is important about fishing?
Right.
Having fun.
Mm-hmm.
When you put yourself in a position that you can't have fun. I was talking to Lindell Martin yesterday. Lindell's a great buddy of mine. He's fished tournaments for years, won several tournaments. He's an awesome fisherman from Texas. And he's fishing the NPFL. And Hackney won one the other day. I thought that was so cool. Hackney won up on Lake Norman, some of the old fishermen. And it's the NPFL, NP Non-Professional Fishing League. Yeah. Non-Professional Fishing League. That's what they
Okay.
call themselves, NPFL.
Okay.
Man, there's so many great guys, and I hear so many good things about that organization and how well they're doing and how people are enjoying that.
Yeah.
And Lindell was telling me yesterday when I was talking to him on the phone, he said, I'm at the point in my life, Hank, where I'm just not going to go to a tournament I can't have fun. If you're going to go fish a lake, and we fished a lot of them, I told Ray Scott this years ago, I'm so sick of fishing lakes where we know when we go we're not going to catch more than 20 pounds. Why would we do that? Why would I drive 15 hours and spend a week of my life on a body of water? I'm not going to catch any fish. That's no fun. We need to go to places like Sam Rayburn and places like Toledo Bend and the St. Lawrence Seaway and Kentucky Lake. And we need to go to some places, Okeechobee, that we can catch fish and not go to these lakes that you just know before you go you're not going to catch hardly anything. And Lindell told me yesterday, he said, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to have fun. I want to win and I want to compete, but I don't want to win on a lake that I ain't going to catch but 15 pounds of fish in 3 days. I don't care nothing about it. That is no fun. So Lindell is not going to do, this is him talking to me, so Lindell is not going where we're not going to catch fish. If it ain't fun, I ain't going. I love it.
Fair enough. Hey, you can't blame the man.
Yeah, but that's it. We got to have fun. So these guys, I understand it, and there are sacrifices. We all made them.
Yeah.
I had times I didn't have fun. It was too much pressure, but you work through it. But you got to have that carrot out there, and you got to set those goals, and you got to set those boundaries as well as those goals, where if I don't do this or this or this, I can't go any deeper in debt than this because I'll spend the rest of my life trying to dig out. So it's important that that you have a passion for the sport, that you absolutely love it. And you need to build that, and you need to instill that into your neighbors' kids, to your friends, to homeless or single parent children that you can help, your own kids. We need to know that the most important thing about fishing is fun.
Absolutely.
And so we have to instill that.
I second that.
Yeah. And so then when you are able to progress, if that's what we want to call it, advance is probably a better word, and you think about making that career move, you need to calculate what all is involved, and you need to be aware that it won't take you long to be so far in debt that you'll never come out of it. So you got to set some boundaries.
Right.
All right, when I get this deep in debt, I'm going to get a
You're
real
gonna
job.
stop. Yeah, set a game plan, be smart about it, and don't go overboard.
I like that.
For your own
Set
sake.
a game plan, be smart about it.
Right.
I never was smart.
You were street smart.
Street smart. I
I'd
was
say
street all right. I was on the street all the time, dragging that boat up and down the road.
It's funny. Well, with all that being said,
Oh, no, we're nowhere near. We're only about 35, 40 minutes into this podcast. You
All right.
can't cut me off at that stage. I just begun to fight.
I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to cut that part out.
No, man. Sarah Beth wants to get this podcast over where she can go comb her hair.
No.
What you got going on today, Sarah
Today,
Beth? Yeah.
not too much. Probably going to go work out, and then that's it for the rest of the day.
You want to tell people what you did yesterday morning?
I did. I went, we went turkey hunting.
We went early, didn't we?
Yeah,
what
we
time,
went real
what time
early.
did you get up, Sarah
I
Beth?
got up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
4 a.m.
We got
She
it.
just found out about 6 or 7 weeks ago that there were 2 4 o'clocks in the same day.
Okay. Then no need to be hurtful now.
Well, no, but that's true. You had no idea. When I said 4 o'clock, you
true.
said, why are we going to leave so late? I thought
That's
we'd
true.
leave at least by noon.
Well, I walked over here about 5 o'clock. Started walking this way to walk to your house, and we went out turkey hunting. We went several
Hey,
different spots.
We had a bird gobble 75 or 80 times.
Yep,
It got so close and,
Got so close, came up over a hill.
and saw us.
Saw us.
Boom, over with.
Hank threw his gear down. he said,
Stack high in
"You
transit.
stack high in transit. You can figure that one out for yourself."
No, you don't need to figure it out. Just take it at face value and let's go on down the road.
Yep. We sure did. Last day of turkey season too. So this
The last
is
day for us.
For us, anyway.
So it was my last day. I'm headed somewhere else to go bass fishing. You know, I said about that, I love to bass fish, and so I'm going to. I don't know if everybody knows this or is aware of this. Guess this is probably the 4th year that Canada has done a conservation bass season on Lake Ontario, where you can. It's a catch and release only, but it seems like it may come in the season maybe April 1st. I'm not sure when it comes in. It's sometime in April and goes out like May the 10th. But you got a month or so of fishing, and water temperature the first year that they had it was a very cold winter. Unlike this winter, it's been very mild. A lot of the water that normally freezes up on Lake Ontario did not freeze this year. They didn't have much ice fishing at all because it was a mild winter.
Wow.
So the water temperatures are going to be much higher than the first year that I went. But the very first year that I went, I had Bobby Williams, who used to live in Clayton, and that's where we put our boat in. We put our boat in Clayton and went across into Canada. Which the center of the St. Lawrence Seaway is the dividing line between America and Canada. So you don't have to run when you put in Clayton. You don't have to run but 2 miles and you're in Canada. Wow. So I went with Bobby, and Bobby ran camera, and we only put the cameraman in his boat for maybe an hour at a time. So he's out there fishing and hanging around all day, where when I need him and need to put my cameraman over in his boat, he's there for me. So we're in constant communication. So I'd put my cameraman in the boat with him, and they do cutaways and wide angle shots and that sort of thing for TV. And so we started out with running, and the cameraman's in Bobby's boat. And so for 15, 20 minutes there, cameraman stayed in his boat, and then Bobby swapped over and the cameraman got in our boat. And so Bobby called me and he said, "Hey, can you come over here and weigh a fish for me?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I got a scale, but I want you to weigh it and I want to take a picture of it." I said, "Okay." So I go over there, and he's got an 8-pound smallmouth. I've never caught 8-pound smallmouth. Matter of fact, that's the first 8-pound smallmouth I'd ever seen in my life.
Wow.
8 pounds of big smallmouth bass.
Yeah.
So he caught that fish. And about an hour later, he called me and said, "Hey, I need you to come over here and help me weigh another fish." 8.3. 8-pound, 3-ounce smallmouth, biggest smallmouth I ever saw. And about 2 o'clock, he calls me again. He said, "Hey, I got another one to take a picture of." Another 8-pounder. That's 3 8-pound smallmouth in one day. Then he had a 7-12 and a 7-13. It's got to be the biggest string of smallmouth bass ever caught.
Yeah.
I would think. I can't imagine.
I know your jaw was on the floor.
Oh, and I never caught 8-pounder. I caught a 7-14 2 years ago.
Close.
Yeah, I caught a 7-14, and I've caught several 7 3/4. I'm going next week. I'm going up there to fish. The season goes out on that conservation season on May the 11th, I believe it is. So
right.
I'm going to run up there and see if I can't catch one of those big ones like Bobby did. But I've never caught 8-pounder, but I've caught numerous 6 and 7-pounders.
Right.
Tons of 6 and quite a few 7s, which is unheard of because I had never caught a 7-pound smallmouth. I fished with Chris Nofsinger in Traverse City, Michigan, and caught one that weighed 7. So that was the biggest of my whole life after 35 years of fishing for smallmouth. And then I started going to Lake Ontario. The gobies have put the weight on those fish. It's incredible what has happened.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about it. So if you didn't know about the conservation season, and you might want to think about that if you like to catch big smallmouth, it's pretty incredible. And that last week is when I would highly recommend go about the 5th or 6th of May and fish through the 10th or 11th, depending on when the season goes out. Last year it went out on the 10th, and I think this year, I'm not sure, so don't quote me on it, I think it goes out the 11th, but it's right there.
Okay.
That's a good place to go and a good time to go and And if you
Sounds
love
fun.
it, here we go back to the foundation of the old dugout boat. If you love it, it is a thrill, man. I'm as excited about going up there and catching those big smallmouth as I was going down to Georgia when I was 4 years old fishing with my grandpa.
Aw.
It's exciting.
cool.
And I'm getting to take Boone, Cade, and Hank Jr. That's Hank Jr.'s two oldest boys, or his only two boys. He's got 3 daughters and 2 boys. And we're taking Boone and Cade and Hank Jr. and I, we're going to do a little turkey hunting while we're up there in New York, and we're going to catch big smallmouth. So I love it, and I'm excited about it. But that's the whole thing. We go back. We talk about the history of the sport. It doesn't matter how advanced it gets. You still got to love it.
Right.
And if it's not fun,
Make it fun. You just might as well.
Don't add that additional part. I talk to so many people, and forward-facing sonar is such a controversial topic. I don't want to get into the controversial side, but I talk to so many people that says, I'm fishing the NPFL because they don't allow it, and I feel like I'm more competitive. Good for you. I'm all for it. Good. That's fine. And then I talk to somebody that says, man, I love it. I can't hardly catch a crappie or a crappie without it. I really depend. That's good.
Yeah.
Good for you. I'm good either way you want to do it. That's fine. And then I talk to guys that say, I've been doing it for 2 years now and I've gotten pretty good at it. But for me, it's not fun. Then don't do it.
Do what works for you.
And what makes it fun.
Yeah. And what makes it fun.
Yeah, if you're not having fun, don't do it. I go back to talking to Lindale. Lindale's grandson, Tristan, is unbelievable with forward-facing sonar. I mean, he catches them. Tristan loves it.
Yeah.
And him and his grandpa, Lindale, they fish tournaments together. Lindale hates it.
Right.
Lindale will tell Tristan after a while, he says, hey, take this boat over there to them bushes and let me pitch this jig a little while. I'm so sick of looking at that screen. And again, Lindale's an independent son of a gun. Now, Lindale, he is one of a kind, man. I love him down there. He'll say, I'm going to tell you right now, boy, if it ain't fun, I ain't going to do it.
Right. Well, hey, I don't blame him at all.
But that's a good philosophy.
That is a very good philosophy. And I'll tell you what, that forward-facing sonar is not easy. I was looking at yours the other day when we were out in the water. I was like, what is that little yellow dot? You're like, that's a fish, Sarah Beth. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different game, and I stink at it. I tell people I've wasted way more time than I've caught fish, but I still do enjoy it because it's a challenge. It's something different, and it is not a slam dunk for me at all. It may be for some people, but it is not for me. I have worked and worked and worked, and I'm going to get good with it just because I like a challenge, and it is a challenge. So
that is one thing I will always say about you is you will never give up on something. And that is one of the things I admire about you the most is that when you set your mind to something, you're going to give it everything that you've got, and you're not going to quit.
It is such a thrill to finally get it done. And I'm slow, I was the only guy in the 8th grade that couldn't tie his shoes, but I figured out how to tie my shoes.
You
now.
may be slow, but you got the same result in the end, didn't you?
My whole motto in life is I might be fat, but I sure am stupid.
Oh, man.
But hey, I learned to tie my shoes, and that 8th grade was the toughest 5 years of my life.
That's awful. Golly.
Well, Sarah Beth, it's been fun. We've enjoyed the podcast. I hope everybody else has.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure that you go check out those links in our description of this video. I will put the link to go vote for the Wonders of Wildlife Museum.
Yeah, let's talk about that a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Go
Wonders
ahead.
of Wildlife Museum is Johnny Morris's. It's at Bass Pro Shops headquarters in Springfield, Missouri. They got like 1.5 million gallon aquarium, saltwater, freshwater. They got all kind of species, sharks.
Yes.
I mean, it's amazing. They got the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. They got the NWTF Museum. They've got the Boone and Crockett Museum. It is so fascinating, and it's an awesome place. And I think 6 years in a row, they've won the Museum of America Award, 6 years in a row. So let's go vote for them. And the reason they won it is because they deserve it. It is absolutely the greatest museum in all the world, in my opinion, but it's right up my alley, and you got to go see it for one. But right now we need to vote for where they can win it again. So it's going to be in a bio. How's that work, Paul?
So for this video, it'll be in the description. I'm going to title it Vote for WOW, and then the little link that's right next to that, you just click that one and go vote.
WOW is Wonders of Wildlife.
Yes, it's an acronym, yes.
Hey, look out. I got it.
Look at you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And we want to thank Liqua Moly. Liqua
Yes.
Moly is an absolute great product. We're going to have Gary as our guest, the president, and he's going to explain it more thorough and more accurate than my ability.
Yeah.
And we want to thank Mossy Oak.
Yes.
Mossy Oak is Mossy Oak Fishing, Mossy Oak Outdoors, Mossy Oak in general. We love Mossy Oak, and they
We sure
help us
do.
out, and we're greatly appreciative to them.
Yes.
And so we've had a good day, and
We sure have.
I thank Michael Bacon for the tour. And remember, if you're ever in Shreveport, you want to go check that out.
Absolutely. Well, with all that being said, I'll see you guys next week.
That was a good cue right there to say goodbye. So, hey, thanks for being with us. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. God bless you. I'm Hank Parker.